So yeah, that and that should not look like that. It's gonna be a problem. As you just saw, the motor shaft and the first gear of the sport drive unit are stripped. I knew there was a possibility of gear damage in this drive unit when I bought it, but from my inspections and testing prior to putting it in the car, it didn't appear that there was actual damage. I can see now that there is, and so I've got to come up with a solution. Fortunately, I still have the base drive unit, and though it does have some damage, I believe that the rotor and the first gear are still in good shape. Unfortunately, the old adapter plates are still stuck in that drive unit, so I'm going to have to destroy at least one of them to get the case open and get to those parts. Now I'm going to start tearing apart the old drive unit so that I can pull out its rotor and the first gear in that gearbox. Then I will pull the rotor out of the sport drive unit. We will swap them back and forth and create a Franken motor and hopefully get the car on the road as soon as possible.
Here comes the Electro Chevrolet. Paul Mangelsdorf, the 1940 Chevrolet Coupe. But it's moving pretty good on the top end. He's going to try to get around Fontaine. He does. 1265 for Mangelsdorf in the electrified 1940 Chevy. That's pretty awesome.
It's just a cool thing because I'm the gasoline forever guy, but I do not discourage this behavior.
So I'm going to start off by taking apart this end and trying to pull the rotor out. That way I can check that the splines on this rotor are good before I get into the gearbox to pull that gear out. Part of the reason I'm delaying getting into the gearbox is the old adapters are still stuck in this motor. So getting into the gearbox is going to involve destroying at least one of them. If I can check on the rotor first, that'll give me a little more confidence in breaking things to get to the parts that I need. So you can see there was definitely a coolant leak and a whole lot of rust in the old drive unit. I'll show you the rotor in a second. It's got a lot of surface rust on it as well. I've got to do some research to see if and how I can clean that up before I go into the gearbox to pull the gear out. The good news is the spline on this rotor looks good. So that is at least heading in a positive direction. So there's a lot of rust on the old rotor, but the spline and the bearings do look good. So I'm going to see what I can do about cleaning this up and then keep moving forward from there. So as you just saw, I pulled the bearing off of this end of the rotor with good splines. because it's basically trashed. There is no, it still spins, but it was making noise. It's basically trash. The one on the same end of the one with damaged splines is better, but still not great. But it appears that the bearing on the other end is the same bearing, and the one down there is good. So I'm going to try to pull it off that end of the damaged spline rotor and put it onto this end of the good spline rotor. Something you can see here is that the rotors have some differences. It appears that the bearings are at the same location, use the same bearings, same splines, all of that. And it's a little deceptive. This does appear to be a little longer than this one, but this center section is the exact same width, and on the ends it is a bit hollow here where it's solid here. So I don't know specifically what the differences are between the two, but I do know that this one has good splines and this one does not. So this one's going in the drive unit in the car. Now I'm going to go grab the rotor with the good splines that you just saw me put the end plate and the encoder on. We're going to get it into the good drive unit, and then we're going to work on getting the gears out of the bad drive unit. So I had to cut off the adapter on this side, and the hope is if I start by unbolting the differential retainer here, then when I open up the case, the differential will actually stay with this half of the case, and that will let me get to the second and then the first gear so that I can take that first gear and put it into the good drive unit. This took a while and many Sawzall blades, but hopefully this will work. I'm going to get to it now. So as you saw, I got the part I need out of the old drive unit, and now I'm gonna clean some stuff up in here and start getting this put back together. So off camera, I finished putting the whole drive unit back together, got the fluids in it, got the adapter plates back on, figured I didn't need to show that 1,000 more times, and it's mostly just wrestling things into alignment so that it'll bolt back together. Now we're gonna get it back in the car and get to testing. So she's back alive. Pulls really well from that quick test there. Seems like everything's running pretty well. There is a little more gear noise than before, but next time we'll do a lot more testing and work on feeding some power back into the tune to take advantage of having the sport inverter.